You are listening to the CADDle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CADDle Call podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CADDle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your overly caffeinated host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
It's Rocco. Good morning.
It's Rocco.
Good
morning, Rocco. Good afternoon and good night, wherever you may be. To all the ships at land and sea. I don't know whether it would be ships at land, but why not? Sounds like a good plan. Oh, goodness. It's going to be one of them days, Rocco. So first of all, folks, Rocco yelled at me this week. He told me that my last few podcast topics have been a little bit too disruptive. So apparently I've been getting all angry young man out here. Though actually we all know I'm really just a grumpy old man. But
man, you guys got to go and listen. Just listen to our recent past episodes, and you'll know what he's talking about.
All right, I got a little hot under the collar. That's true. I'll give you that one. So I figured we'd go with something a little bit less controversial this week and just focus on the idea of technical training. That's pretty safe, right? So I want to visit the idea of whether it's better to take these training sessions live with a real instructor or as an on-demand recording that you can take when it's convenient for you. And I also think that there's some solid benefit to kind of a hybrid approach to training your technical staff, kind of using both methods. So we'll get into that today too. So let me begin today's conversation just by reiterating something that you've all heard me say 1,000 times. You can never train your staff enough. Right? Training actually beats pay raises on the list of things that your employees most desire. And unlike pay raises, training will actually increase your profits instead of decreasing them. It's a very simple idea. Regular technical training makes for content employees who are better and faster at their work. Hence, they will make you more money. I never understand when I run up against clients who are resistant to the idea of regular training, right? Mainly, because they're too busy or they don't want to lay out money for knowledge that their employers can employees can potentially walk away with, right? Look, you've all heard the story before about the CEO who asked, what happens if we train our people and they leave us? And then the CTO who replies, well, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? And that's a much more dangerous scenario for a business to be in. So Rocco, we're moving into a whole new year here, and there's been a big shift in how AEC firms work in the kind of the distributed workforce post-COVID world. How are companies looking at training today? Do you see a change in their stance?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're realizing that this situation, this pandemic, is really not going to go away easily in the short term, and that there's, the world is moving on from the standpoint of business and growth, and they need to find time and money to be able to train their employees. For a while it was like, okay, well, let's put this on hold and see what happens. But, we're going on 2 years now, right, that we've been living through this situation, and it's companies are finding ways to make it work, and the reality is that the technology is there to make it all work. Look at us, we're all working from home and using Zoom and Teams and GoToMeeting and everything else that's out there. So it's accepting and it's finding a way to make it work, and it is working.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that, a lot of people, at least on the tech side, right, where I tend to work, a lot of the people who used to, like I said, delay the training or put training as a lower set, they're seeing that as a huge benefit for employees, just like, adding, better healthcare and so on, that they can offer for a reasonable rate. And it really helps with retention. So I've been seeing a lot more training going on recently. So So let's kind of get back into this conversation. Let's start with the idea of live instructor-led training, right? And traditionally that was normally done, on site in your office, in a conference room or a dedicated training room, if your company was big enough to support that sort of thing. But more recently, like Rocco was saying, it's become a default online process, right? Particularly since the advent of COVID. But a lot of companies saw that things were going to go that way long before COVID hit. Zentech, right? We actually were founded that way, right? From our original discussions when Rocco and I sat down over coffee, it was online only technical training was going to be the keystone that we were going to build this company on. And luckily for us, it worked out pretty well so far. So I think we made a pretty good guess there in where we were going. But yeah, like Rocco was saying, right, with modern apps like GoToTraining and Zoom and Teams and a dozen others, you can really easily host live instructor-led classes. Right, you can share example files, and you can do breakout sessions and surveys and polls, and you can do screen sharing, and you can pass control to the instructor if you need. Essentially, we can do for the business world what the education system's been kind of forced to adapt to over the last 2 years, right? The idea of remote learning. And I actually think that's a really good thing for everybody involved, particularly in the business world. It gives your employees, the students, the opportunity to work with only the very best instructors from around the world. Right? You're not kind of bringing Joe Nobody in to teach a class just because he happens to work in your town, right? That's gone. You're only getting the best people, the people you know and trust. And it also lets your students attend these sessions from basically anywhere, right? From their office and their home, the construction trailer. I even had students log into some of my classes while waiting in the airport for a flight, okay? Make use of that downtime. And the benefit for the company is that it means reduced costs, right? Just simply put, you're not paying me or your students for travel time, right? And most importantly, your people can go right back to work following a training session, right? You're not losing half of a production day in them, traveling to another office and setting up and traveling back, right? It benefits everybody across the boards. So Rocco, have you seen a big change kind of in the perception of online training over the last few years, and how many firms are now willing to work that way?
Oh yeah, I mean it's again it comes back to accepting the technology. And look, I take plenty of calls from potential customers that are interested in that still want to go with the live training, and I tell them, and this is the truth. I mean, if needed, we will go on site. We can do it live. We come from that background where we're used to being in front of people, for 8 hours a day. But once you start to explain to them, hey, the benefits of the live training, you break it out into 2 hour sessions. It's, you're not taking your team away for 8 hours at a clip and pulling them away from production and being able to respond to issues at home and at work. And the cost is much less. You're not having to pay for an instructor to fly out and hotel and meals. I find that they're like, yeah, maybe you've got a point. Let me talk internally and get back to you. And then next thing you know, they're getting back to you like, all right, yeah, let's try this, and they try it and they like it. So it's definitely been changing. And again, particularly in this age of pandemic that we live in, it's a much easier platform and structure to work with.
Yeah, so I see there was at least one positive that came out of this whole COVID nightmare, right? People did learn to trust. They didn't have a choice. They had to learn to trust the tech and realize that it really does work. And I think your point's excellent. That it's something that, like you said, we do here a lot, which is break those big giant courses across multiple sessions, multiple days, right? So that they're a little bit more, they're bite sized. People can hold the information a lot better and use it. And you're not losing that whole billable day. So instructor-led classes, I think, give you the benefit also of being able to, ask questions, right, of an experienced professional, right, and have someone, right at hand to address any technical problems that might come up, right? I mean, and that's particularly useful if you're doing technical training, on like CAD systems, estimating, file collaboration software, etc. Right? Where the program itself, right, not the training, but the actual program you're training on, can have issues and errors that can slow down the training, and live instructors can help with that. And I think the other big benefit of having the live classes, you get the opportunity to assemble your staff as a group, even if it's remote, right? Everybody's remoting in from different locations. There's still a group, and you can have them all get involved in the class together, right? So that you can incorporate the ideas of best practices and company standards into each one of your sessions. And look, don't sell that concept short. Having people working in the same environment, all be able to explain to each other the pain points that they're having and the specific reasons behind the workflows that exist, that can really a lot of times have a bigger impact on your staff than the training itself. I cannot tell you how many times that I've done a private class for a company, right? And they had one person explaining why we do item A, whatever that is, and everybody thought it was just a pointless process, right? But the one guy understood that it's actually saving hundreds of hours and tons of money, right? And he explained it to everybody. And there's no better way to get buy-in on your developed processes than having everyone trained not just on the how to do that thing, but on the why of doing that thing, right? And that's really something that you can't get in a recorded session, okay? So Rocco, there are a couple of ways that we present these instructor-led classes at Zentech. Why don't you explain kind of the general concept of how we present the different types of classes to our listeners?
Yeah, and look, I'll preempt that by saying that this isn't just a plug for Zentech, right? I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that do what we're doing. We might have Absolutely. A little bit more of a unique approach, so don't think of it just as a Zentech plug here.
Plus, they'll miss, but to be fair, they would miss out on my charm and demeanor if they don't go with us. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Rocco just let that one slide. No comment.
So yeah, we do both public as well as private classes from a live standpoint. And public classes are where we have companies from all over the country that join scheduled classes. They are run live and they're open to questions by chat throughout the class. So that's one option. And then we also do private classes. If you've got a group of folks and you want us to run the class specifically for your team with a one-on-one dedicated instructor, we can work with you that way. And we can take the structured outline as we have them set up on our website, or we can even work with you to develop a custom outline. So that's the way the live classes work. And then we offer on-demand classes where you can purchase the classes and have access to them, to each individual session for 24 hours or a full 8-hour course for 5 days, and work through the content at your own pace. And it just comes down to what's better for you and your schedule and what your needs.
Right. And that's exactly it, right? And that's what we're kind of saying. And Rocco's right. We're not trying to plug what we do here, but those are kind of the best concepts, I think, out there. They're the best ones that we found, and that's why we kind of work with them. So, look, I'm a big fan of the live instructor classes, right? I think that the interaction between students and coworkers and instructors, I think it brings a lot of benefit to everybody involved. It even helps me as the instructor get a better idea of what problems people run into in the real world, right? Which lets me adjust the class to address those problems. Honestly, that's actually where we usually come up with the ideas for most of the new classes that we put together. Someone during a class had a problem that was kind of outside of the scope of that immediate class. So we tell them, hey, stand by. We'll put together another class on how to deal with just that issue. So live courses are really a two-way street, benefiting both, the student and the instructor. And that's not to say that there aren't real positives to working with recorded classes as well. And that's what I want to talk about in our next segment. All right, so hang around, folks, and we'll get back into that and talk about recording sessions after a quick word from today's sponsor. So we'll be back in just a minute with more of the CADDle Call podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Jim and Rocco with Zentech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you today about Bluebeam Review, the premier quantity takeoff estimating and markup software for PDF out there on the market today. And at Zentech, we are a premier Bluebeam partner here in the U.S. We're here to help you guys with all your Bluebeam needs, from software sales to training, consulting, configuration, and everything in between in all things Bluebeam, from the standard version to the extreme version and anything else you might need. So, in terms of Bluebeam, Rocco, how do people reach out to us if they want to start that conversation?
Yeah, just hit up our website, give us a ring, or send us an email, or through Osmosis. That works too.
Osmosis is good.
Yeah, zentechconsultants.net or sales@zentechconsultants.net, or give us a ring, 866-824-4459.
All right, Zentech Consultants, your home for all of your Bluebeam software needs.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the CADDle Call podcast. We're talking about the pros and cons of live versus recorded technical training. And in this half of the show, I wanted to start with the good and the bad of the pre-recorded training. We talked about the live in the first half. And the most obvious good point of recorded training is convenience. Right? You can watch recorded classes, wherever and whenever it's convenient for you. Right? You can start, watching a class at lunch and then, pause it to take a call and, pick up the kids from the bus stop and then, pick it up again right where you left off when you get back. You can integrate the recordings into your schedule in, whatever way seems best to you. And that's a major benefit. You also have the benefit of being able to rewind a recording, right? To go over something again and again and again until you feel like you really understand it. And look, that's an important tip, for old guys like me whose brains don't pick up new info quite the way they used to. And I think another plus on the recording side of the technical training world is that, recorded videos do tend to be a little bit more affordable than instructor-led live classes, right? A company like Zentech can take, one of the public classes, right, and we can record it, and then we can offer that recording at a discount because we don't have to pay the instructor again, all right? We're only paying them for the initial class, right? Look, there's still expenses for us. We still have to host it and share it and provide all the example files. And, for Rocco's sake, we still have to turn a profit, all right? So we can't put those recordings out there for free. But it's definitely less than a live class. I will say that I do periodically run into folks who get annoyed about paying for recordings, particularly folks who hire us to teach, the private classes. They're constantly wanting to keep the recording of that class forever, right, at no charge. Like they bought it and they own it and it's theirs and they want to keep it. Look, setting aside the fact that Rocco and I both like to eat and we have mortgages. And we all know Rocco has a dozen, one for each of his mansions.
15 now.
15, right? He had a good year last year. See, and I'm living in a van by the river still. Sorry, I love that joke. So look, I try to be polite to folks, and I explain it to them that the training, it's like renting a car, right? You paid for temporary usage. You didn't permanently buy the whole thing. Technical trainers like Zentech, right? We're leasing our knowledge to your staff for a set period of time. But look, folks, at the end, this is how we make a living. We can't train every employee that you ever bring on or hire in the future for free, or we're going out of business and very, very fast. So, Rocco, do you think that folks have kind of come around to the idea of recorded training and its benefits and limitations in recent years? And do most folks think that it's a good thing? Or do they still kind of prefer the live classes?
Well, look, there's options available for everybody, right? That's just, and you're not going to make everybody, you're not going to make 100% of everybody happy, but, and that's why we offer the different options that we do. I look at the evaluations, for example, from our on-demand classes, and the scores are very, very high. We ask, would you take another on-demand Zentech course again? And I can't recall the last time I saw somebody say no. So, they see the benefit in it, and in fact they suggest other classes that we can offer. So, for the people that the shoe fits, they enjoy it and they like it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So look, let's be honest, right? There are negatives to the recorded classes as well. You do lose the interactivity, right, and the ability to go off topic and pick an instructor's brain that you get with a live class. And I think that you can also run into two issues, right, with recorded training that I think get a little overlooked sometimes. First off, if there is something that you just don't understand in a recording, people are really reluctant to admit that. With a teacher, right, the students will ask questions or have them go over the process again to kind of, phrase it in a different way. But in a recording, right, it can mean putting your confusion into writing, right, and sending an email. And folks can be really nervous about doing that. They don't want any kind of formal proof that they did not understand something. The other issue that I've run into, and it's a bizarre one to me personally, it's that some people never watch the video. Look, I will say this, right? This never happens when people are paying for that training themselves, right? But I am always surprised at how often companies, right, who are looking to, save a few dollars off the instructor-led classes, they buy access to the recordings for people who just never access it. They never look at it. And look, at Zentech, right, we can track and we can tell who watched the recordings and how many times and for how long. And it's not uncommon, to have people who never even go to the recording site, right, after their companies shelled out cash for them to get access to those recordings. So look, I will say, I suggest that if you're paying for your employees to access recorded training, which is, like I said, can be really good, just, ask them to provide, certificates of completion of some kind, which we do offer here at Zentech, and most companies do. You just get a little something as proof that you're actually getting what you paid for. Okay. So, Rocco, in terms of the recorded classes, and you were saying, right, just before, right, I was going to, what kind of, feedback do you get in terms of results and satisfaction? Obviously, you're getting positive responses on the recording, but how does that compare against the live classes? Does one seem to do better or they fall out?
No, I think we get equal feedback on both. It's just the on-demand classes work, I think, better for people whose schedules are very fluid and they can't commit to a time to scheduled times, whether it be with their private, as a private class or as a public class. So that's, another benefit of the on-demand option. I mean, if they want to review a class at night or overnight or on the weekend, I mean, it's available to them. Versus with the live, it's fixed, so there's more flexibility with the on-demand route.
Right. And I will say, I mean, I tend to see, believe it or not, right, even though there are negatives to the recorded, I do see, in terms of the feedback that I get, the folks, I think, who are using the recorded training, they tend to be a little bit more positive because by its nature, it's flexing to their needs. Like you're saying, right, it's positive for them. Whereas I think, periodically in live instructors, you can run into, personality issues. People didn't like the way that somebody instructed something, or like, so you get people coming into that class who are starting off from a frustrated, annoyed standpoint because it's cutting into their day and something else that they think is more important, and they're kind of being forced into it because of the time restraint. So, I think a lot of times we get a little bit better feedback, at least, on what I see when I'm dealing with the students directly on those recorded classes, just because you're starting from a point where, hey, we've already adjusted it and built it to your schedule and your needs. So people, I think, start off a little bit happier that way. But look, the truth is, like Rocco was saying, right, there are benefits and drawbacks to both methods of training, right? And the best approach is really a hybrid. Like I said, I find that, live classes tend to work best for office workers, right? People who are in your office all the time, right? Or working in front of a computer all the time. Particularly in team environments where you have a number of people who need to work together, right? Using the same technologies, et cetera. and that way they can kind of reinforce each other's learning process. Field workers and staff who regularly travel tend to fare better, like Rocco was saying, with the recorded training, right? Their schedules are just so, scattered and inconsistent that it's almost impossible for them to schedule fixed training times, weeks in advance. They just can't predict what their work days are going to be like until the day of, right? And even then, they may need to cancel out of the class at the last minute because of an emergency on site. And I think that the hybrid method lets you kind of grab the best of both worlds. And like, so, for example, right, with every one of our instructor-led classes, like Rocco was saying earlier, here at Zentech, we provide a recording of every session to the students for, I think it's 48 hours, right, Rocco?
Yes, sir.
Yes, 48 hours, after the class, right? Right. So people get the benefit of an instructor, right, and getting that live class, but they still have the ability to review the materials as much as they need for that, 2-day window. And on the other side of that coin, our recorded classes give students the ability to ask questions from our instructors via email, right? So they can still get answers to the things that confuse them, right? Even though it may take a couple hours to get a response back. But they have those for a week, so that they get time to do that and review it all. And we also make sure with those recorded classes that we're providing all the relevant example files and handouts, right, for our students, right? So they're not just watching a video; they're encouraged to actually follow along and do the work with the teacher, just like our live attendees do in our live classes, right? And we have clients who we work with who regularly ask us to do both at the same time, right? Either they want to give some people live access, right, to the class. I'm going to have these 5 people show up on Tuesday, but then I've got 3 other people who can't make the class, but we want them to have access to the recordings. Okay? Yeah, no problem, right? Most technical consultants will adjust to that. We certainly do. Right? And sometimes, we have clients who opt to pay for an extended period of access to the recording, right? Maybe, for a private or a public class, they want to extend it, to a week instead of 2 days, or, for the recorded class, they want to expand that to 2 weeks instead of the week. And, we work that on a case-by-case basis. But, I think that, flexibility is important, right? Because there's really no hard and fast answer on, which type of training works best, right? It just depends on the client. It depends on the timing, the workload, right, and the situation. And it's important to work with the technical consultants out there, right? And again, we're not pushing the sales stuff to call us, but I'm saying just, look at who you're working with to make sure, right, that they're going to, provide long-term ongoing training for your staff in the way that works best for you and your staff, right? Not for that consultant's bank account, okay? So just keep that in mind, folks. So yeah, let's wrap it up there before I start remembering how much bigger Rocco's bank account is than mine, and then I get all sad and weepy. So, all right, folks, say good night to everybody, Rocco.
Good night.
All right, folks, we will catch you next time on the CADDle Call podcast.
All right, everybody, today's CADDle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.